It is 10:03 a.m. and this meeting of the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission is open for business. This is a combined public meeting and possible executive session of the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. And first order of business is establishing a quorum. Commissioners, would you let us know you're present? Frank Thorwald.
Stephen Cooper.
Mike Conway.
What is it we need for a quorum? We've only got 3.
Mr. Thorwald, you have a quorum. 3 members of the commission constitutes a quorum.
Good, good. We have a quorum then, and we will move forward. Is there any conflicts of interest? Just for note, Mr. William Firebrand, he's just joined us. Would you introduce yourself there, Bill? You're here? I don't hear you. I can't hear you. Nothing yet.
Unmute.
There we go.
Finally. Okay. It only took 3 tries to get the update through.
Everyone, we are trying a new system. We tried it the last time and we've been updating it since. So please bear with us as we move this system forward. We were hoping we would be on YouTube publicly, live publicly, but we will be on that in the future. And all of our meetings are posted on the internet and will be on YouTube as we move forward. Is there any, do I hear a conflict of interest from anybody on any of the issues? Hearing none, I'll move forward. We've had quite a bit of changes since our last meeting with the departure of our previous administrator, who is just on for a short period of time. He did a great job while he was here, but he bought a house here, just for everybody's reference, and his wife had some health issues, so he had to move back. So we have been shaking things up a little bit in the process. So I'm going to start off with the introductions here. Our Air Quality Division Deputy Director, Heather Krause, would you introduce yourself and introduce the rest of the team?
Yes. Hello, my name is Heather Krause. I am, as Frank mentioned, the Air Quality Division Deputy Director here at AZOGCC. I've been with the state for about 3 years. Prior to that, I was with Maricopa County in the city of Avondale. So all that being said, I have about 23 years of environmental experience. So I started managing the oil and gas program just about last May. I helped assist with the grant application, and we have a few people here that I want to introduce. So the next step would be Tyler Reed. He is the acting administrator.
Hi, everyone. Tyler Reed here. My experience is in the oil and gas industry. I've been a geologist, and I have my degrees, bachelor and master's degree in geology, and I also have 2.5 years, 3 years of experience in environmental hydrogeology, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Tyler. I'm going to pass over Brooke for the time being as she's helping Mr. Nations get online. So next up would be Andrew Foss. He's our project manager, one of our project managers here.
Hi, I'm Andrew Foss. I'm a new addition to the team, been here about a month and some change now. I have an academic background in environmental science and chemistry, but I'll mainly be helping the team manage some of these well plugging projects, but nice to meet everyone.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. And then next up we have Wendy Flood, who's another project manager. She's a project manager 3.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wendy Flood. I've actually been with the agency about 23 years. I have a lot of background in Superfund remediation, undergrad source tank drinking water, and specifically a lot of experience with outreach. There should be a little arrow on it. Open meeting law, and I'm excited to move over to air quality from waste programs and join this team, and I will be helping to manage the plugging grant that ADQ was awarded. Nice. It's nice to meet all of you as well.
Thank you, Wendy. So I believe you might have already met Brooke at some previous meetings. So when she comes back in from helping Mr. Nations, I could have her do a quick intro. She used to be the intern here for the oil and gas program. I think she did 2 semesters working under Marta. So she's been a great addition, a permanent employee. So with that, we can come back to Brooke if that's okay. We can move on to item number 7. Frank?
Yes, let me point out one other thing that Wendy brought up. The grant we got was for oil and gas and the DEQ made it happen through their financial sources. They did it on behalf of the Oil and Gas Commission. Moving on to number 7, discussion and adoption of action by the commission. Our acting administrator, I'd like you to come on and talk about each one of these on Cobalt, to start with Cobalt and then Desert Mountain and Pentadome.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Vice Chairman Nations may be on the line now. I just want to make sure it's in the record.
Okay, Commissioner Nations, are you there? Can you hear us?
I believe he may have muted his microphone.
Commissioner Nations, you are muted. Your mic is.
Mr. Chairman, I think I stand corrected then.
I can hear Brooke still working with Mr. Nation, so I think we're almost there, but.
Okay, Commissioner Nations is with us. Thank you, Commissioner Cooper. We'll finish working out the technical problems here in a moment. Tyler, would you please go ahead and talk about, as the acting administrator, talk about items A, B, and C in number 7?
Yeah, so first off, the Cobalt Group, they're interested in a spacing exception for 1 well. Previously, they were going to request for 2 wells. They had some issues come up, so they will be presenting their justification for 1 of those wells today. Scott Bowles, and I apologize, Scott, if I got your name wrong. Bowles is on the call to present the justification for that spacing exception. Scott, I'll let you go ahead.
And commissioners, in the files that were sent to you, you should have a copy of their presentation. Mr. Bowles, go ahead.
Okay, commissioners, thank you for your time today. My name is Scott Bowles. I'm the VP of operations for the Cobalt Group, and have been a part of the company since about 2011. Again, thank you for your time today. It sounds like you do have a copy of the presentation, commissioners.
Everyone has one.
Okay, great. Briefly going through the presentation, just to highlight some of the important items that we sent you, really is the fact that what the Cobalt Group is trying to accomplish here is based on existing data, surface maps that indicate potential.
Let me interrupt, Commissioner Bowles. This is Chairman Thorwald. Since we're redoing our technology, I apologize. I would think that we should have this. Is any of this, none of this is confidential. So for the public record, we should have this visually for everybody to see what we're talking about on the screen for those that are not commissioners.
Brooke, are you available to show that?
Still helping Mr. Nations. I can see if Andrew could maybe assist. I can send you over the presentation, Andrew.
Yeah, I can pull that up once I get that.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize for interrupting. This is Jyoti. Brooke, if you can hear me, maybe Commissioner Nations could join by telephone. There is telephone join information in the agenda as potential solution.
Thank you, Josie. And by the way, I neglected to introduce Josie. She is the Assistant Attorney General for the Commission. Are we going to be able to put up the presentation on the screen?
Yeah, I'm just getting that pulled up real quick.
Okay. Hopefully we'll have all these technical issues worked out so they won't have them at our next meeting.
Mr. Thorwald, again, this is Jyoti while they're pulling up the presentation. Because of the virtual meeting, if the commission takes votes, could you, when you take the vote, could please, each person please state their name and their vote so it's clear for the video record?
Yes. Everyone should introduce themselves before they speak. And that is Member Thorwald speaking, Commissioner Thorwald.
Frank, this is Heather Kraus with ADQ. Andrew has, I just sent Andrew the presentation, so it might take him a moment to pull it up.
As we all need to get in that, Brookie, introduce yourself when you speak.
Frank, this is Heather Kraus from ADQ. Brooke is still assisting Mr. Nations.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Worst case scenario, he can just join by phone.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps we should change our name to the Paleontology Commission. We are a bunch of dinosaurs.
I like that. Thank you for the suggestion. Now, not for anybody to think that we are not organized. We actually, and I participated in myself, a training session on how to use this, and so did the entire team. So we are have had practice at this. I think until we get used to it, there's going to be a few glitches like this. So again, my apologies. There we go. Mr. Bowles, would you please proceed?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, this is a spacing exception that we're requesting, and this is located in Township and Range 20 North, 23 East, Section 31. Just to give you an idea of where that would be, it's just west of the Petrified National Forest Park and just northeast of Holbrook, Arizona. If we could go to the next slide, we could dive into why we're seeking the spacing exception. Primarily, this is based on our 2D seismic program that we acquired in 2018 and 19 was based on existing surface maps that had interpreted potential anticlines in the area. And so you can see here, these red arrows are indicating an interpreted anticline in the specific area. And so you can see that black line. There's two black lines that indicate seismic lines that that Cobalt has acquired previously that we're attempting to understand if there was a structure in this existing area. What we did learn is there is a potential structure, but it is actually located further to the southeast. And you can see that star that is the area where we are interpreting to see a structural high. And so we're very interested in that area. Whereas you can see here that the interpreted surface map indicated that the structural high was further to the northwest. So this is why it's vital that the seismic is an important part of our interpretation of why we'd like to drill this in this specific location. So again, the star is indicating that the structural high is located in the very southwest corner of this section 31. If we could go to the next slide, we could zoom in and you can see we're very close to the section line. And just to give you an idea, you can see again the cobalt seismic line that we've acquired previously. Cobalt controls the majority of these leases surrounding this area, except for to the southwest. You can see in the southwest corner, Prize Energy controls that lease. Cobalt has a great relationship with Prize Energy. We have notified them of our intent to drill in this specific location. In fact, we presented to them yesterday, and it was a great presentation. We had a great discussion about this specific area. Also, it's important to highlight again that where this star is located, where this proposed site is located, is the structural high that we're seeing according to the seismic. And we don't want to deviate far from this because that increases our drilling risk. If we look at the next slide, again, this is highlighting, and this is just a general idea of what the anticline or structure might look like under the surface. This is not an actual representation of the structure that we're seeing, but this is just a general idea of the potential structure. Also, another important item to mention is the fact that according to the seismic that we are interpreting, is there's a potential sinkhole further to the southeast. And so we're trying to avoid that. So this proposed location that is very close to the section line, we're trying to avoid the possible sinkhole, but we're also trying to stay on the structural high. And we don't want to deviate from that specific seismic line to reduce risk. So in conclusion, if you go to the next slide, to wrap this up, again, repeating myself, but just really want to emphasize the fact that we don't want to deviate from this seismic line. We don't want to increase our drilling risk. And so this is where we're interpreting the structural high is this proposed site. We are also attempting to stay away from this potential sinkhole in this proposed area. And so we'd like to seek a spacing exception for this location. Any questions, commissioners?
Commissioner Nations, can you hear us now?
I can hear you on the telephone.
Fantastic. Thank you. Glad you're with us, Jack. Do you have any questions on the presentation?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't keep up with it. I was trying to get connected. So just go ahead. I'm here I can hear you on the telephone and I can see you on the screen.
Okay. Do you have the presentation there, Commissioner Nations?
No, I don't.
Well,
it's on the screen.
Can you?
Yeah.
On the screen. I hate to be, since we're going to be voting on this, I hate to move forward without you knowing what's going on. So, Mr. Bowles, I apologize. Would you mind repeating your presentation to us so Commissioner Nations can see go hear this?
Sure, you bet, Commissioner. I can do that. So let's go to let's go to the second slide, if that's okay. Mr. Nations, so what we're trying to accomplish here is our seismic program that we acquired in 2018 and 19 was based on existing well data and based on existing surface maps, and specifically Arizona Bulletin 182 that indicated potential anticlines in the area. And so our seismic program, you can see the black lines. There's multiple black lines here in this image, but you can see these two seismic lines that we acquired we're attempting to target interpret an anticline, which are the red arrows in this area. And what we learned from acquiring the seismic was there is indeed a potential structure, but it is actually further to the southeast. And so if you look at where that star is located, that is where we are proposing to see the structural high. It doesn't appear to be a large structure, but we do see a structural high where that star is located. So the next slide will show you in greater detail where this is located. So you can see these orange lines, which are section lines. And you can look at this image and see that Cobalt controls the majority of this area, except for the section to the southwest, which is controlled by Prize Energy. You can see the seismic line that we acquired through these 3 sections here. And we are proposing, based on our interpretation, that the structural high is where that star is located. Now, regarding Prize Energy, we have notified them of our intent to drill this specific location. We have a great relationship with them. And we, in fact, presented to them a similar presentation that you're seeing here today. So they're well aware of our intent to do this. If you could go to the next slide. This is depicting a general idea of what the structure might look like. Again, we're highlighting shot point 2772, which is where we interpret the structural height to be. We're also seeing in the seismic imagery that there's a possible sinkhole further to the southeast along the seismic line. So we're trying to avoid that specific area. And really our greatest objective is to drill on the seismic line to really reduce our risk. If you could go to the next slide. In conclusion, again, just to repeat myself and to really highlight this, Cobalt intends to reduce our risk as much as possible. And so to reduce our risk, we need to stay on that seismic line, especially where the structural high is located, according to the seismic data that we have. We're also attempting to stay away from a possible sinkhole. And based on the data, the location that we're seeing is very close to the section line. And so based on that, we would like to propose a spacing exception.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. According to our presentation material here, I understand that there is it just one exception? I have two new wells. Is that correct, or is it just one?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mr. Commissioner. We will be seeking an exception for another well, but the other location is on state lands, which will require a cultural native plant survey. And we would like to get that survey done before we propose exactly where we would like to drill, because if we do find some cultural sites, we might have to shift the location a little bit. And so based on that, we'd like to wait until we get that survey back.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles.
Welcome.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Bowles or for staff?
I do.
Please proceed, Mr. Farber.
Okay, great. Could we go back to slide 3 again? Okay, 2 or 3, okay. So you got your star, which is the crest of an aniform through there. White line is your seismic. What is the axial direction of the aniform? How's the aniform laid out? Northeast, southwest? Can you kind of fill me in on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we did acquire a seismic line that's perpendicular to the one that you're seeing here, but it was further to the northwest. And so, you know, we don't have a lot of data to understand the orientation of the structure, because based on the high where it's located, we don't have a line existing perpendicular to that, if that makes sense. We feel like based on the limited data we do have, it could be a southwest, northeast trending anticline, but we don't have enough data to really confirm that at this time.
Okay, perfect. So what you're really with your star what you're saying is we have an anticline that you think is northeast, southwest. We have a seismic line northwest, southeast. Where that seismic line crosses the anticline is where you want your interpretation of you assume it's kind of perpendicular to the axis of the anticline. That is how you picked your drill site right there.
Exactly.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other commissioners have questions for Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, Frank, this is Mike Conway. Mr. Bowles, could you give us any other information on the potential karst formation, the potential sinkhole? Do you guys have any other information on that to share?
Well, again, this is just based on 2D seismic is, this is based on that interpretation. Our geophysicist who interpreted the sinkhole has seen this in the Pinta Dome. And so I don't know if, and he is saying stay away from the sinkhole, which makes a lot of sense, but I don't know if previous operators have drilled into a sinkhole in that area or around it, but he's recommending that we stay away from that. Again, that's just based on what we see in the 2D seismic, and 2D seismic is not a perfect, it's not a perfect scenario as far as what it tells you, but what we do see is there's a potential sinkhole there.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any further questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Cooper. This question is for staff. The way that I see the administrative regulations on spacing exemptions, we need to make sure that we have a certified copy of the application that was sent to the adjoining leaseholders. And I don't know if we've received that in the file or not.
Staff, do we have that?
I will check. Scott, I believe we had previous discussions about this. You have that information. If you sent that, I'll look at it right now.
And we can get that too. That's no problem.
We really need to have that before we can make a decision on this, unless we do make a decision on it with that, that we have that first before it goes into effect.
Mr. Thorwald, this is Jyoti Belgian from the AG's office speaking. The commission obviously has two options. You can wait until another properly noticed meeting to vote and make a decision, or you can approve it with the condition that applicant Cobalt Group provides you that information to satisfy the rule. And also, Mr. Thorwald, I will, at the appropriate time, I'll ask Mr. Bowles to identify with specificity the precise location of the well for which they're seeking a spacing exception, so that the commission can vote on a very precise motion about where the exception is being granted.
Thank you. Mr. Bowles, what is the precise location on that? Or Mr. Taylor, Administrator Taylor, do we have that?
So in my communication with Scott here, I think what happened is we've got a survey that was going to be taken, and due to the weather in the last couple of days up here, they were unable to get that survey done. But we've been in regular communication about having that survey and that plat prepared. And in terms of the notification to adjoining lease mineral interest owners, because it was prize, he had mentioned that they had already had discussions. And so again, I guess that's another one of those things that we'll confirm with Scott to make sure that we have that information on hand.
Just for future reference, we need to have all of these things in place to make a proper decision on this. council, is there any way we can vote on this without having that information? Besides, since we do not have a precise location?
I'm a little hesitant to speak and give advice in public session.
Okay,
Do you have, Heather and Brooke, do you have a mechanism to go into executive session without the public present?
Yes.
we do.
can see The breakout room for you and the commissioners.
Okay,
In that case, commissioners, I move that we go into executive session for advice from council on this. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Cooper. I would second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Bill, aye.
Mike Conway, aye.
Any negatives? We are moving to executive session. Members, you'll be, when we get into executive session in this, there will be two buttons. One will leave breakout room and one will say leave. When you come back out of executive session, just get out, click the breakout room. Do not click leave or you'll come out of the entire meeting. So staff, would you provide us the breakout room?
and Heather and Brooke and Tyler, if you could please join us. I will add that executive session allows the people necessary for the executive session, which are the public body members, myself and my colleague Paul Phelps, and I need the staff present.
Okay, thank you.
All right, give me just a moment as I set this up.
Brookie, when you speak there, you're getting a little echo in there.
Sorry, yeah, give me just a moment as I set this breakout room up.
Okay. If everybody can click join on that, staff and commissioners.
This is Tony. Did your snow go away?
Yeah, it did, Tony. Actually, let's see, yesterday morning when I followed the roller out there, we had like a -5. But today we were up to a balmy 7 degrees. So things are looking up.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, it's actually coming along real well out there.
Good.
Hey, Scott, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Oh, hey, this is Joe Dixon. I had a couple of quick questions. I was going to ask, maybe cut in, if Frank let me ask them before they went to executive session. But I'm pretty sure the well and then section 31, that's within the unit agreement, is it not?
That's correct.
Okay. And is that sinkhole, is that also down there in the corner of the southwest corner of section 31, or is it farther southeast?
It's just further southeast of that, where that star is located.
Okay,
Joe?
but it's still within that section 31?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because there was a little, looked like a little surface expression you could see just southeast of the well site there. I wasn't sure if that's what you were talking about or not.
Yep.
You said it was like of a subsurface.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, we think trying to get still trying to get all those leases straightened out there in the unit agreement there too. David and I have both kind of been with those guys here the last couple of weeks. I think we got them understanding what all they need to do here.
Well, that's
Slowly
great.
making progress.
Well, thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, all right. Should have been done a year ago here.
I assume it's quite cumbersome to do that, but we appreciate it.
Yeah.
I didn't know we could talk.
I know. Pretty cool.
Good to see you again, Tony. Back when the commission meetings were
In person, yeah, no, they're
in person.
yeah.
So Joe, how's that retirement working out for you, man?
Yeah, no, well, sort of. David keeps sucking me in to do all this stuff here, you know.
Or is Oklahoma keep kicking you out? I mean, what's the deal, Joe?
Not out, really. Yeah, we didn't make it into the last meeting at all. We kind of sat there looking at the screen there for about a half an hour. They kept saying was waiting for the administrator to come on. Finally just gave up. I noticed that this time there too, there was something about downloading some kind of a file. So I did that and then I got right in.
Are we all back? Commissioner Nations? We're all back. Good. After our meeting, I'd like to make a motion. Well, first of all, is there any discussion with regard to this application before we, and do I hear any motions? Tyler, I didn't ask you, we didn't ask you what your view was for this application. Do you think this should be accepted with the conditions that having all the documentation we needed?
Yes, based on my review, I believe it's justifiable.
Okay. Is there somebody from Prize Energy with us today? Hearing that, I would like to make a motion that we accept this application, approve this application with the proviso that they provide a certified letter to staff that has gone to Prize and or a notice from Prize that they have received such a thing, that notice of the drilling. Did I word that properly?
Yes, this is Jyoti.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second for that motion?
Mr. Chair, before you make your, this is Commissioner Cooper, before you make your motion official, would you consider adding that we would need to have a more definitive location of where the drilling will occur for the spacing exception?
Yes, I modify my motion to include that.
I have a question. This is Dale.
Go ahead, Commissioner Nations.
Oh, good. I'm getting through. I can't understand why this particular application does not have a specific location. It's been discussed, but I don't understand why they haven't done the surveying that's necessary or what.
This is Acting Administrator Tyler Reed. As noted previously, the applicant has been working with a surveyor to get that location surveyed officially and get a plat to us. And due to the recent weather, they were unable to do so in the past couple of days. It was planned to be completed in the last couple of days.
Any other questions? Mr. Bowles, do you see that as a problem in getting us when do you think you'll be able to get us the more precise location and have that letter to us?
We can get you the letter within a week, simply because we've already been in contact with Prize Energy and their chief geophysicist, and we sent them the presentation. So we can send that within a week to the commission, specifically to Tyler. And regarding the survey, again, that's just based on the weather. Now that it's February, mid-February, I would assume that we could get that survey done in the next week or two, and then we could have that plat to you by then.
So if I would add that to my motion that we also need to have that survey in advance. Would that satisfy everyone?
Yes.
Okay, I add that to my motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Cooper. I second your motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. For Dale.
This
Aye.
is Mike Conway. Aye.
Bill, aye.
Frank Thorwald, aye.
Commissioner Cooper votes aye.
Any nays? It's unanimous. The motion has been approved. Let us move on to Desert Mountain Energy B. Tyler, Administrator Reed, would you please fill us in on this?
So Desert Mountain Energy is looking to request a spacing exception for multiple sections. This would be in Coconino County, sections in Township 16 North, Range 17 East, and Township 16 North, Range 16 East. And Ms. Marta Hogan is on the call to make that presentation.
Marta, would you, are you ready to make a presentation to us?
Yep, absolutely. So thanks guys for having us here, and hi again, miss everybody. I'm back. We can jump to the next slide, please. So Desert Mountain Energy is requesting more of an area-wide spacing exception that we've seen historically approved by the commission. And so as Tyler mentioned, we're requesting 40-acre spacing for sections 1, 2, 3, 10, and 11 within 16 North and 16 East, and then 25, 26, 35, and 36 of Township 17 North, Range 16 East. And I've got a map on the next slide, so we can jump to that. So basically, the area of interest for our area-wide spacing exception is outlined here in red. The blue sections, bluish purple sections here are fee leases that Desert Mountain Energy holds the lease, and then there are Arizona State Land Department leases in green that Desert Mountain Energy holds the lease for as well. Currently, to date, Desert Mountain Energy has permitted and drilled 4 wells within this AOI. That includes the Chevelon 11-1, which is permit 1266, the Macaulay 1-1, which is 1267, the Macaulay 10-1, which is 1268, and the Macaulay 3-1, which is 1269. Based on drilling of those 4 wells, as well as existing historical well data from the well indicated in yellow here, which is the only historical well within the AOI or within the 1 mile buffer area. Desert Mountain has utilized subsurface mapping from well log data in order to come up with an interpretation of a structural high in this area. From our existing 4 wells, we've indicated the presence of helium and the potential to develop an asset here, and we'd like to better enable us to explore, test, and produce that helium potential in the area, and better define the extent of the structural high. I wrote some notes, and so basically, based on our map, we didn't include a map of our interpretation of the structure, but I can indicate that our structure is in the southern region of this AOI, extending to the northwest or northeast, kind of in the same orientation as the area of interest. And we can jump to the next slide. I just include some general basin geology here so you can understand. So Desert Mountain Energy is currently targeting Mississippian aged redwall, limestone, and the Devonian aged Martin formation. It is our understanding that the nature of the porosity and permeability associated with the limestone and dolomite formation type would require infill drilling greater than the current allowance of 660 spacing in order to best develop the potential of the helium in this area. Additionally, Desert Mountain Energy has entered into an agreement recently with another company, a partnership, to explore for hydrogen potential in this area of interest. We have seen the presence of hydrogen in several of our wells that we've drilled in this area. And from conversations with this hydrogen company, they believe as well that 40-acre spacing would better enable us to properly develop a hydrogen asset in this area. All right, we can jump to the next slide. So I included some hypothetical well spacing. More broadly, just I wrote some notes to answer some of the questions that came up on the last spacing exception. So it's Desert Mountain Energy's intent to survey each location and submit a plat as we submit drill permit applications moving forward for each specific well location. We understand that specific well locations will depend on that plat being completed, as well as archaeological studies in any sections that are on Arizona state land. It is our intent to avoid any existing surface improvements, so structures, homes, etc. So that's why some of these hypothetical sections, we don't include a hypothetical well in those 40-acre units. Is just because this is just an idea of what maximum infill drilling would be, although Desert Mountain Energy has not yet determined if we would need to completely maximize 40-acre spacing, the infill here, but this is just hypothetical. I've included a couple additional slides. You can just kind of jump through them quickly. For other sections, that's just section 25, 36, which doesn't have structures. So we included all of the 40-acre units. And then I included the topographic map for all of the sections, as well as the potential drilling units as well. So as supporting documentation for the commissioners. So basically, in summary, we're requesting 40-acre spacing for an area-wide approval. We obviously, from the previous conversations, understand that this would be contingent on a plat of the specific locations as well as archaeological studies. We believe that 40-acre spacing is necessary based on the geology of the rock and the nature of the permeability and porosity in order to best produce the helium. And then we understand that any and all proposed future wells, the hypothetical wells that I included here, would be subject to permitting and approval by the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. Any questions?
Commissioners, do you have any questions for our presenter? Appears we have no questions. Acting Administrator Reed, what is your view on this, and what do we have everything we need for this?
I did forget to also mention that we did include in our documentation that we sent to Tyler certified letters of the notice that we sent to mineral owners and lessees.
So you have sent something to all of the mineral owners and lessees in the
Yeah,
area.
we sent Tyler copies of those certified letter notices.
Tyler, what are we missing anything? Do we have everything?
The one thing that we're missing is the plat. And again, with the way that this request is set up, based on the spacing, I wasn't sure if we would really need that right away. But that's the one thing that we're missing.
Questions from the commissioners? Anything else?
This is Mike Conway. I have one question for Marta. What is the time frame for the drilling?
So the intention, based on our partnership with the hydrogen company, would be to start drilling a minimum of 3 additional wells by June of this year. So we intend to permit at least 3 and then kind of continue on relatively quickly from there. But we have 3 wells of interest to begin this development plan.
Okay, thank you, Marta.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Nations, I can see you talking, but I can't hear you.
I guess I got muted.
There we go.
There.
Go ahead, Commissioner Nations.
I have a question for Marty. This 40-acre spacing is something that we've approved for development of, for the targets in such as the Shinnerup conglomerate, where the reservoir characteristics would be very unpredictable. And I'm wondering now why we're considering 40-acre spacing for deep drilling in the Red Wall and the Martin on larger structures. It's just, I'm assuming that because you're looking for gas, particularly helium, and I guess hydrogen, that the 160-acre spacing would not be satisfactory. Is that right?
Yes, so the nature of the porosity and permeability of the Red Wall and Martin. So we're looking at dolomitic limestones interbedded with like silty shales, essentially in all these formations. And so there is a lot of heterogeneity laterally, and our interpretation thus far, we will obviously continue to collect additional well data as we drill additional wells and better understand the rock in the subsurface. But yes, our interpretation is that we would best be able to develop the helium with tighter spacing.
Yeah, so that's based upon a prediction of porosity being a limiting factor
Mhm.
and permeability in those carbonates.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Firebrand, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Well, thank you, sir. Tyler, what is your recommendation?
So understanding the exact porosity and permeability of these formations, I do believe it's possible that this can be justified. So I think if that is the case, then I think it's justified.
Commissioners, do I have any motions from anyone? Hearing no motions, I will make one myself. I move that we accept the spacing exceptions with contingent upon the completion of the plats and the specific things, and go through each one of those as those are submitted from staff. Let me rephrase that. I think I twisted that a little bit. I would make the motion that we accept the spacing exceptions from Desert Mountain Energy, contingent upon having the completed plat maps and those being acceptable to staff. Do I hear a second?
I would like to have an addition to that we specify the sections that are included in the request.
I modify my motion to include that. So do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
This is
that.
Mike Conway. Oh, go ahead, Dale.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bill, aye.
Mike Conway, aye.
Commissioner Cooper, aye.
Commissioner Thorwald, aye. We have a unanimous approval. Moving on to C, Pentadome operating spacing exception. Administrator Reed, would you please fill us in on this?
Yeah, so the Pentadome operating is interested in spacing exception for their 36-1 state well. This well is in Navajo County. And Joshua should be on the call to present that request to you. Joshua, are you there?
Yes. Thank you, Council. Can everybody hear me all right? I'm on the road and not sure if
can hear you just fine.
Through. Perfect. Okay, so for this, we are looking for.
Please reintroduce yourself.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm Joshua Hugel, the VP of Geoseismic Tech. I've done all the seismic for Pentadome operating, and we are looking for section 17 North, 22 East, or section 36 and 17 North, 22 East in Navajo County. We are looking to get an exception for spacing due to the fact that upon surveying, we found that we're on a structural high, or not the high, but adjacent. It's a
Josh, let me ask for just a moment. The staff, can you put up their presentation on the screen?
Yes, we can do that. Cool, please.
So I will format it better next time into a formation or into a proper presentation that we can flip through a little bit easier.
Appreciate your patience here. One moment while we get this presentation up. Very good. Josh, would you please proceed?
Yeah, so here we have our application that we've already submitted. We've done our, we've had a archaeological study and all done along with our 6/1 that is just to the adjacent section to the south already. If you can flip on. So I've included a, that's the second page of it. I've included a, well, actually, I guess attached to that may be our map there, if you'll scroll down one more time. Okay, so we are 742 feet from the north section line, 516 feet from the east section line. On the yellow highlighted section, we have a tool we use for electroseismic that it doesn't just give us structure, we actually see hydrocarbons. We can tell oil, gas, water, and helium, and tell its depth. And after shooting the section, we discovered that that corner is our only viable option on the entire section. It is on a slope of a high. It actually puts us at the same exact elevation in the Supai. As you can see on this is Desert Mountains 10-1 and 16-1 state wells. And as we moved infield of that section, or on that section, it started tapering off and eventually dissipated to where there's nothing there. So it is our only viable option. We have already sent certified letters to the neighbor, and we've also been in talks with them about a few things, easements and others, and we're working to get all that done now. So, and then I think really that covers it. Ours is pretty straightforward, unless y'all have any questions.
Administrator Reed, have we received the copies of the certified letters?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Commissioners, is there any other questions?
Yeah, I have, this is Dale. I have a question. The objective here would be the Shenrump and Coconino?
The upper Supai, we're not sure yet. We're actually going to go ahead and drill down all the way to basement at this location, because we did see some evidence in our surveying that there is some helium existing there as well, although the main target zone is the upper Supai.
Yeah, the upper Supai. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Commissioners? Going back to staff, Administrator Reed, we've got everything we need from these people, and what is your recommendation?
We do have the documentation required, and based on his presentation and my understanding, I think it is justified.
Commissioners, do I hear a motion?
This Commissioner Nations, I move to approve the request for the change of location for the spacing requirement here on this request.
I second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Mike Conway, aye.
Bill, aye.
Dale Nations, aye.
Commissioner Cooper votes aye.
Commissioner Thorwald, aye. Any nays? The motion carries. You have your spacing exception. Moving, number 8, report by the acting administrator. Mr. Reed, would you please proceed?
Yeah, so we have received several applications for permits to drill.
Mr.
Yes.
There seems to be an echo in the background with you. I don't know if it's the room or not, but I just wanted to mention it because it's a little harder to hear, but if you can do anything about it, fine. If you can't, we'll just proceed and look at it for the next meeting.
Yeah, I say, I would agree that it's been difficult to understand what he's saying.
It may help for everyone to mute themselves while Tyler is speaking, so there is no echo.
There's also a background, so it might be, Tyler, some rooms just require a headset like what mine that you might need for the future. So please proceed.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, that was clear.
Okay.
Much better.
Okay, good. All right, so I'll start over. We have received several applications for permits to drill from Pinta South. Those include the 8-4, the 14-7 NM, the 26-6 PR, the 34-7 PR, and the 36-7 PR. These wells the proposed wells are all in Apache County. And we have received all the information required, and those permits have been approved. Desert Mountain Energy has also submitted an application for a permit to drill the proposed number 26-1 state. This well is in Coconino County. It's a reentry. I've received all the information required and have approved that permit. Arizona Energy Partners, in terms of activity, the AEP 2-1 MS went out of temporary abandonment status and began drilling on October 31st of last year. Myriad Resources finished drilling the Rattlesnake 121 on the 7th of December 2022. They currently are still testing zones prior to completion of that well. Pinta South 36-1 SD State began drilling on the 1st of this month, February 1st, 2023. Jade Ventures LLC, they have 3 wells that are either drilled or expected to be drilled soon. The JV 29-1, it was expected to be completed in December 2022, like I have on the agenda. And for the 31-1 and 35-1, conductor casing was set and sites were prepared for drilling that was expected in January. And I have received an update from Jade Ventures on these wells. They're in the process of securing a drilling rig for the 35-1 and the 31-1. The 29-1 has not been completed yet, and I expect to complete that when they have cement trucks available when they go to begin drilling and do work on the 35-1. And they expect that to be done in March, or at least to begin in March. The Desert Mountain Energy 26-1 state also was to begin drilling operations this week, the week of the 13th. In terms of our federal funding opportunities, the Infrastructure and Jobs Law grant information is listed here. If you would like to review that information, that link is on the agenda. The bipartisan infrastructure law allows for $1.15 billion in federal funds for open well plugging operations across the country. Arizona is eligible for $29.87 $2 million in grant money. The notice of intent deadline was 12/31/2021, and we did submit that, and we have grant funding for the initial grant. And our eligibility for that was $25 million. 24 states were awarded.
Mr. Administrator Reed, let me stop you for a minute. Before we get there, I'm still having trouble hearing you, but I would like to see if any of the commissioners had any questions about the other items that you mentioned prior to getting into the funding items I through V through 7, V11. Commissioners, do you have any questions on any of those that he's previously mentioned?
Commissioner Nations, no.
Okay. On the federal funding opportunities, yes, thank you. On the federal funding opportunities, please proceed. I'm sorry to have interrupted.
That's right. I'm sorry about the issue with my audio. I don't know why it's doing that. Can you hear me? Can you understand as I speak?
It's just a hollow sound. It's hard to hear. It could just be your room. We'll try to get you a headset for the next meeting.
Okay. I
Please
apologize
proceed.
about that. Okay. So 24 states were awarded the initial grant funding totaling $560 million. Arizona was awarded $25 million for the initial grant, which is now in progress. Of the approximately 1,300 wells that we have in Arizona, a little bit less than 1,300, we have 246 wells identified as potentially being orphaned wells that are going to be looked at during this project. And the project is broken down into 4 different tasks. There's 4 work phases, and we have identified those as task 1, site assessment, task 2, site characterization, task 3, plugging and abandonment, and task 4, site restoration or remediation. For the task order 1 update, like I said, it's in progress. The contractors submitted their proposals to us to begin work on this project. They have been reviewed, and 13 of those contractors have been awarded work for task 1, and they began work in January. The notices to proceed were sent in late January and early February. Some of the work that they are conducting right now include well records review at our records library down at the state office to determine what hard copy records we have that need to be digitized. So they're comparing the digital records with our hard copy files. They're reviewing the well status of each of these wells and potentially the wellbore condition if they can identify any information in their well document review. They are working on conducting environmental reviews to understand the potential harm or issues associated with these wells, particularly identifying impact to disadvantaged communities. They're reviewing surface and subsurface ownership information and obtaining access agreements for right of entry as we move on to the next phase of this project. The task 1 is really more of a desktop review, getting things ready for preparation for task 2 when they will make the site visits. The next point, community engagement platform.
Before we go, ask if there's any, is there any questions?
Yeah, are there any questions on that? For task 1?
Hearing none, let's move forward.
Okay. The next point, community engagement platform. Using the funds from the initial grant, we are creating a community engagement platform to educate and inform the public. The Arizona Department of Environmental Quality GIS team is working on developing an educational webpage that includes some of these items. We're going to have an interactive oil and gas wells map for well information. It will have a link to a GIS page for a wells near me tool. So it'll allow them to input their address and they'll be able to identify what wells are in their area. It will include a well reporting tool and progress updates on the plugging work for the work that's being done under the grant. It will also include information about public community events and meetings. And of note, the content of the website will be translated to Spanish, Navajo, Apache, and Hopi languages. Are there any questions on that point there? Okay. The next point, the draft initial grant guidance was published by the Department of Interior, and it's available at that link. This Gov Delivery link will take you to this bulletin dated 3/17/2022, and that draft guidance document is linked in the first sentence there if you'd like to review that. The next point, formula grant update. Are there any other questions related to the initial grant? Okay. For the formula grant, that letter of intent was submitted December 29th, 2021. And Arizona's eligibility for the formula grant is $1.262 million. Draft guidance for the formula grant was released on January 24th, 2023. The Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission, or AZOGCC, members from participating states met with DOI on Wednesday, this past Wednesday. Let's see, that would have been the 15th, to provide comments and feedback excuse me, regarding the released draft guidance. And one of the main concerns that was noted by nearly all of the states was the concern about the phased approach of the grant and releasing funding in phases. The states proposed a non-phased approach to the grant funding to decrease the administrative burden, to better plan appropriately for long-term projects, and to keep momentum that some of the states have built with the contractors they're working with, and not lose those contractors to industry or other projects as they're going through the plugging these wells. There was also a 6-month rolling application period through the end of the year that was proposed, rather than having a hard deadline. This would help states to be able to apply when needed and spread out some of the administrative burden on DOI to provide that funding over time to applicant states rather than all at once, like was previously done with the initial grant rollout. And we expect DOI's final guidance or additional comment in the near future. Are there any questions on the formula grant?
I have a question. The next funding round, where does that fit into all of this?
So the formula grant would be the next funding, and that draft guidance was released, and the states have had a lot of input. And so I think they're still kind of working on a deadline. And like I said, there was talk of a rolling application period. So we have not yet heard a definitive answer on that deadline.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions for the administrator so far? Okay. Do you have anything else?
I keep getting muted. This is Commissioner Nations. Now, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed, Mr. Nate.
Okay, I'm sorry, Tyler. I just could hardly understand that, what you're talking about. I can see it on the paper, on the document. Does this mean that we're in progress with the well examinations and plugging and abandoning them?
Yes, so we are currently in task one, which is sort of a desktop review. We're identifying environmental factors around these wells. We're identifying the owners of the surface lease and the mineral ownership, and securing access agreements to access those well sites, and doing well record examination right now. So that's kind of where we're at in that project for the initial grant funding.
So we're still in the survey process rather than actual work on the wells.
Correct. The contractors have yet to go out to the wells.
Okay. The time constraints concern me a bit. If I want to see people getting out on the field and actually taking care of the plugging and abandoning these wells.
We expect the contractors to start visits in April, the site visits, and start working on additional items in task 2 for the site characterization.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Tyler, do you have anything else?
I do have some more items.
Please proceed.
Yeah. So for the initial grant subaward agreements, item E, the Groundwater Protection Council is working with Coordinate Solutions to help us achieve our grant data reporting goals with the Arizona Oil and Gas risk-based data management system. That database will act as our primary data source. It will contain both the information required by DOI for grant reporting, as well as all of our well data. We have been working hard with Coordinate Solutions to identify our requirements for the application. Some of the application features include a well editor. This is where we'll make any changes or add information about a specific well into our database. We also have an entity editor, and that will house information on operators or contractors that are working with us to do the plugging work. There will be a plugging module, and that will contain information specific to the plugging operations, including a proposal or bid response package, and it'll allow us to manage the contractor proposal information, project-related costs, and invoice data as we get that project underway and we start getting the invoices from the contractors. There will be a bond module which will allow us to better maintain and use operator bond data. This will improve efficiencies when reviewing permits to be able to quickly verify operator bond status and which wells are associated with each bond. It will also include a dashboard which will be used to visualize key metrics in chart graph form. Similar to other dashboard tools that you may have seen, it will, I think, be useful to be able to report some information that we may want to report on very quickly with short notice. And that will be in real time. It will be pulling data from our database, and it will be updated in real time. In addition, the Groundwater Protection Council is proposing use of additional DOE funding to be used for expansion of the dashboard that is included with the plugging module. And that will be connected not only to that module, it will also connect to some of the other module, some of the other data types that were not included in the original scope. It will also include a data visualization tool called Data Explorer, and that will allow us to map some of these pieces of information from the well editor, the entity editor, and the bond information. It will all be connected to this Data Explorer. Are there any questions? Well, and the final point is related. It's the University of Arizona is working with us to prepare some of our data, our existing data, and get it into that RBDMS database as we set this up. Are there any questions on the database?
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Yeah, this is Mike Conway. What entities are on the Groundwater Protection Council?
The Groundwater Protection Council is a subsidiary of the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact, the AZOGCC.
All right, very
And
good.
just about everybody is a member in some way or another, and they're involved with the federal agencies as well. Can you, Heather, Tyler, can you be more specific for them?
I don't have any more additional to add to that.
Okay. Let me add a couple questions or things to ask you to discuss. The Geologic Survey's involvement with us in this, would you explain that? The Arizona State Geologic Survey.
Yeah, Heather, can you answer that one a little bit better?
Yes, hi. Yeah, I'm happy to take on that question. So Arizona Geological Survey is now encompassed within the University of Arizona. So the formal subaward agreement was signed between ADQ and the University of Arizona.
Heather, let me interrupt you a second. We've also got a background echo in there, and it's really hard to hear you as well.
Okay, I'll get closer to the microphone. Is this better?
Much better.
Okay, great. So Arizona Geological Survey has been included within the University of Arizona. So the formal award, the subaward to the University of Arizona includes Arizona Geological Survey. They're the ones that's actually going to be doing that preparation of the well data that Tyler mentioned. So that's how there's that relationship, if that makes sense. Do you have any questions on that?
Would you add what they're doing specifically for us?
Sure. Basically what they're doing is they're going to be taking all of our well inventory files and making sure and preparing them for the incorporation into the Groundwater Protection Council database. So this week, actually, we're supposed to be receiving the final spreadsheet, if you will, to have that data captured by U of A and the Geological Survey to then, what they'll be doing is going through those 1,300 wells, filling out that spreadsheet and ground truthing the data to make sure that there is that one source of truth. So they're going to be doing a lot of legwork over the next couple of years to get all that data included in that spreadsheet so it can be uploaded into the overall database. Did you have any questions on that?
This is Mike Conway. Is there a model of this database that's already available for review? Not the Arizona data, but the larger national.
Yeah, I can get with the Groundwater Protection Council and see if maybe they can put together some slides from other state agencies. We did go with the Groundwater Protection Council because they are a leader in this space with oil and gas development of products for folks. I think there's about 24 states that they currently work with. So yeah, we can definitely send, I can reach out to Groundwater Protection Council and see if I can get some slides to send over to the commissioners.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Sure, you're welcome.
The commissioners, any other questions? I have a couple more. Heather, you might be best on some of this. Some of the well data that we're collecting from the Geologic Survey is collecting and that we're putting together, including trying to find other wells that we currently don't know about, data in Texas, the core samples and so forth. Could you fill in the commissioners on what's going on with that?
Sure. That was not identified in the initial scope of work that you see here listed under E2. So that is a separate meeting that the commissioner and myself will need to have with the U of A Geological Survey, Arizona Geological Survey, and then possibly amend that scope of work.
And this all ties into the Groundwater Protection Council database that we're using, so. Now, will this database be available on the website with the other new options?
Yeah, so that is one of the things that we're working on internally here at ADQ to have eventually have a public facing portal. Right now, we're really focused on getting the internal workings and the database functional, but we have had those conversations with IT, and that is in the future plans. We just need to have a separate login and things like that. And so I'm not an IT person, so I'll just say that's definitely on our list of things to do and incorporate, but right now we're focused on the development of the database.
Will this database be able to be, where are we with the process of being able to share that with DEQ and with state land or whoever we need to share it with, or combine information coming in?
Well, right now we're still in the database requirement stages. We're in our final, we have one more final meeting set up for next week, and then the developers will go back and start working on the actual structure. And then at that time, we will have that spreadsheet that I previously mentioned that will go to the Arizona Geological Survey for their staff members to complete the inventory. So that is on our list of things to discuss. On a side note, I did reach out to Simone Hall with the state land and mentioned that sharing of data is on our list of things that we want to accomplish in the near future. So I've already started that conversation very high level, but I'm not quite sure how RBDMS yet works and how we can share that platform, but it's on my list for the developers.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions so far? Hearing none, acting administrator, is there any other things you need to go over before we proceed to the next point?
I don't have anything else now.
Okay. Moving on to number 9, report by the chairman. The Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission has been continuing to have ongoing private meetings with the states to discuss each aspect of these grants and the new grants that are coming up and how we fund those to help us educate that and work through each of the phases of this. This is still being, even though there's been guidance put out, this is still being changed as we move forward, and there's still room for modification in this. So that's really where we are with them. And there'll be another meeting in May and then in November in different states for bringing everybody together. I have been appointed to the nominations committee by the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact. And so I will be doing that as additional duties. Any questions on that? There's not a lot to report other than that. Moving on to item B, the New Mexico Produced Water Research Consortium. We're still participating with that. And we're talking about fit to purpose uses of produced water. And EPA and a number of other states and some major companies are still involved with the New Mexico Produced Water Consortium. And we've been talking about the costs of desalinization for industrial purposes, for agriculture, for livestock, and for humans, and what we might be able to do with that produced water. Can we produce will there be sufficient quantities? This is built out to be able to use that for hydrogen production. We've been talking with other entities about the storage of hydrogen as well, and I'll come to that in a few minutes, but it relates to this. And so that is still an ongoing process and ongoing discussions. Any questions on that? Hearing none, let me move on to item C, the Office of Navajo and Hopi and Indian Relocation, and this would include I and the I2s. There is no update on this. With the change of administration, Arizona administration, I haven't had any updates on this, and I haven't been able to reach anybody at the Navajo Nation to get any further clarification on this. Moving on to item D, discuss, item, that would include item D as well, because there's been no discussion on the hydrogen and carbon production that they would be doing. Moving on to E, the Groundwater Protection Council. We have also been discussing the storage of CO2 and with them, as well as hydrogen and hydrogen storage. And part of this discussion has been pore space and what other applications or funding can we get from the Department of Energy or other entities, including the Department of Labor, Agriculture, and so forth. And we've been discussing can CO2 be used in other ways. For instance, in some parts of the state in the past, it has been pumped into greenhouses to create more rapid growth, use less water in the process. So part of this discussion with these federal agencies has been, if we use geothermal for greenhouses, can we make that more effective for greenhouses? And can we save water? Can we use the CO2 in another way to produce oxygen? And can we get funding to characterize the potential of this? So that's an ongoing discussion that we're having. Groundwater Protection Council has been talking to a number of agencies about that, and I've reached out to Department of Energy and discussing that too. Any questions on that? And that would be a separate package of funding, separate than what we've already been talking about. Okay, hearing nothing, let's move on to the next item. The sharing information between other agencies, oil and gas and other agencies. This has been a priority from my perspective, and the governor has, the previous governor had set some things up to allow this to happen with other agencies. So it seems to be to keep the agencies informed about what's going on and not have the companies out there resubmitting everything multiple times to different agencies. If we can share certain data between the agencies, it will make it easier not only for the agencies, but also for the companies out there that we're working with. And this is an ongoing process that we're trying to get restarted. Any questions on that? And Heather, do you want to jump in? Is there anything that you can add to that?
Nothing to add, but I would be interested in, maybe we can connect offline to discuss who you were working with in Governor Ducey's office, so we can continue that conversation with Governor Hobbs.
Okay, thank you. Any questions so far? Commissioner Nations, do you have anything to report?
No, I do not.
Okay, going on to the legislation affecting the Oil and Gas Commission. So far, there's not really been much of anything. The annual no hydraulic fracturing piece, but it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Then now going on, and there's really, we haven't been able to, and this ties into the to the lobbyist report. We got our materials ready for our legislation and our the changes we want in too late for this legislative session. I was hoping we could get some of this in with strike-alls, but it's just not going to happen. So the legislative changes we want to see happen, we should be really well positioned to bring them forward by the next session. And prior to that, hopefully we can get everything presented in over the summer and in September and have everything ready to go. And part of that was a piece of one of the documents that you all have on pore space. And we don't have anything right now in statute here in Arizona dealing with pore space. And that has to do with the carbon storage, and not only carbon storage, but what are this liabilities associated with that. So we put together what was going on in the other states with regard to that. And then staff attorney at DQ took that and then went back and forth with oil and gas staff to modify it to make it work for us. And it's that's the piece of legislation that we would like to present. Hopefully we can get through next year that you all have copies of. Is there any questions about, there are other pieces of legislation that we want to move through relate to the base fee of $25. We wanted to bring that up to what the current other states charge for that and make it, instead of having it under statute, make it under rules so we can change that and modify it up or down as necessary instead of having to go to the legislature to make those kinds of changes as we move forward. The other pieces of legislation are with regard to enforcement, other kinds of enforcement issues that we would like to be able to do without having to just take somebody to court. So fees that we might be able for charging, and the ability to charge a fee for doing an analysis of groundwater, groundwater protection permit, and being able to do that and eventually get primacy for the areas associated with the regulations, EPA regulations on everything associated with oil and gas here in the state of Arizona. So those kinds of things would be shared with DEQ on that. And I'm kind of rolling all these next few sections together simply because they all are so closely related. Any questions so far? Let me move on to the administrative rules procedure. We are well behind. That was supposed to be in last year, the 5-year real report. We submitted some things. We've got a delay on getting that in with our rule changes. Now that we have gotten the grants, initial grants that we had to get behind us, we can move forward with that so that later this year that can be presented to GERC for rule changes to be able to help us in some of these same areas that we've talked about for a number of years and that you've already looked at those rule changes in the past. Any questions so far? Okay, hearing none, let me move on to the lobbying report. There really hasn't been anything from me with regard to lobbying. There's really been nothing to lobby for since to stop anything or to move something forward, since we were also late in getting these things in. Let's see, moving on to L. The reestablishing the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission separately from other agencies. Still looking at that. Don't know if that can be accomplished legislatively. It would take additional funding from the state to be able to make that happen. And we would need to continue to be able to put into place these other funding mechanisms, grants and so forth that we've been getting, as well as being able to have primacy and be able to do the analysis that is currently being done by DEQ with respect to the oil and gas permits.
Yeah, Commissioner Nation's question.
Please go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that. What you indicated that you're still looking into that. Has that proposal gone to the governor's office, or where else it could actually be changed?
The legislature has to change that. The governor does not change that. The governor certainly would have their thoughts in that, but we've got an administration change, so everything starts over with an administrative change anyway. So the key thing with regard to that is funding, funding, and funding. Mm-hmm. And right now, there isn't funding to be able to make that happen. It would take a number of things to be able to make that happen. That would include continuing to get grants, the ability to have primacy with regard to certain 6 and a number of other areas, so that we could do the analysis for groundwater protection permits and other things, injection and so forth, and collect money to do that. None of the legislation is in place to be able to support that. So until that is all in place, and so there's a lot of moving parts, we would not be able to be independent, because we would not have enough funds to operate.
Yeah, all right.
Any other questions in those areas? Let's see. Commissioner Cooper, do you have anything to report from on the lobbying side of it?
Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners, I was asked to serve as an unpaid lobbyist in the event that staff felt that they could not advocate at the legislature or the chairman was unavailable. Currently, I'm sitting in the bullpen waiting for the chairman to tell me to start warming up.
Well, that's what I suspected. Thank you, Commissioner. So far, have not needed your assistance, but we certainly appreciate you standing by. Moving on to number 11, a budget report by Heather Kraus. Heather, would you please give us your report?
Yes. So as you are aware, we do have, through that legislature of change, when the Oil and Gas Commission came over to ADQ, there is a portion of funds that comes from the Air Permit Administration Fund. We call that APAF in the office because we do like acronyms. So for that annual budget for the APAF fund, Oil and Gas receives about, for this fiscal year, over $420,000. That was our annual budget. For the annual forecast, we're about $197,000. So our forecast budget to gap is at $223,000. And the reason for this is we had some vacancy savings or due to Russell's leaving, and staff that we had previously had on this APAF fund, such as Brooke, were transitioned over to the next fund I will discuss, which is the IIJA initial grant funds. Is there any questions about the APAF fund?
Just to explain what the acronyms mean, that's all.
Oh, sure. That stands for Air Permit Administration Fund. That funding source comes from the permitting division. We receive non-Title V fees for our permitted sources. A portion of that money has been allocated through the legislature for the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. Is there any questions on that? So those kind of fees will cover our permitting program and things of that nature within the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. Okay, moving on then to the second fund that we have, since we had submitted for the application for the initial grant and we were awarded the $25 million, we have an annual budget for the IIJA initial grant of $9,253,000. So that's the annual budget. The annual forecast is about 8.6 million. We have a forecasted budget gap of about 583,000. And that's the money that we're using to pay for the staff that support the grant, pay for the contractors that are out in the field doing that work, and the database that we've discussed and the U of A sub-award that we've also discussed today. Did anyone have any questions about the grant funds? And the grant is a 3-year grant, so you might be wondering, where did the rest of the money go? So there's 15 million that will be used in the subsequent years. Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We added something that we've done in the past. We've always had state land say something to us about different things, and I thought it was better if we had it on the agenda. So David, is there anything you would like to fill us in on from state land?
No, this is David Haig with the minerals, section manager for the mineral section. The commissioner, we're hoping, I think it's gonna start mid-March. And we don't currently have a legislative liaison, so, our business, pretty much we're doing business as usual. And then, we're also putting together, Joe and I have been putting together FAQs to help make the state land process more transparent. They should be on the website hopefully pretty soon.
Thank you, David.
Mhm.
As we move forward, we're going to do the call to the public, but when we have our next meeting, and we are doing this through YouTube, that there'll be a short delay, like a 30-second delay, and we'll have something on the screen that shows that this will be brought to the public. And we'll also have backgrounds that we can use if we want, showing that this is the Oil and Gas Commission. Call to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak to the commission? Say something to us.
Tony Hines with Ranger.
Please go ahead, Mr. Hines.
Question on the 246 orphan wells that's been identified. Is there a list that's available that we could review to see if they picked up all the ones in our area of operation? And then two, are any of those funds to be used on the Navajo Nation or O'Neill lands for plugging wells, or is it outside of that area? Thank you.
Certainly, we can supply you with the list of the sites that we know of so far. There's still certainly, we need to know about other sites, and we have a program that we're trying to get out to the public to inform us of those. The funds are not for Navajo Nation lands at all. They have their own separate funds, but the funds are for plugging and abandoning are for O'Neill lands as well, specifically O'Neill lands. And that is included in what we're doing here at the state level. And it's a separate package. And we're negotiating and trying to work with the Navajo Nation as well, and O'Neill, to make sure everything, access and everything works as smoothly as possible.
Thank you.
Is there any other people, any other members of the public that would like to address the commission? Hearing none, let's go on to commissioners. Is there any 14 is commission requests for future agenda items? Commissioners, what would you like to see on the future agenda or not see? I would like to see more of an update too as we move forward in the website and what we're changing there. How people will be able to, companies will be able to register through the website, and more details about that, as well as the sharing of information with other agencies. Commissioners, is there anything else that you would like to see? Hearing none, let us move on to announcements. Is there any announcements that we have? Item 15 on the agenda. No, hearing no announcements, we'll move to item 16, adjournment. We are hereby adjourned.
Have a good day.